Today we're going over the Wedge strategy, which is how Notion built their application to an over $10 billion valued platform. If you're watching this video, you're probably thinking something similar at this current point in time. You have an idea for a software product, but your vision feels too far out of reach as it currently stands. Now, if you're a first-time founder, of course, this question is probably keeping you up at night. The answer might lie in what's known as the Wedge strategy. Right, a way to start small, gain traction, and expand gradually. In fact, one of today's hottest productivity startups, Notion, nearly failed until its founders narrowed their focus into a single wedge. That tiny wedge became the foundation of a $10 billion platform used by millions today. So today, we'll break down Notion's productivity journey, exemplifying their wedge strategy and how you can apply these to your MVP. We'll talk about what the wedge strategy is, why it's ideal for Bootstrap founders, and walk through Notion's timeline from a simple note-taking app to docs, collaboration, Notion AI, Notion Calendar, and beyond. By the end, you'll see how starting with a focused wedge can help you stay lean, attract power users, and grow into a full ecosystem step by step. Now, transparently, what sparked me to create this video is a conversation that I had with an individual earlier on in the week. I won't divulge too much of their personal details or the idea they're looking for us to help them create, but essentially their overall vision is to create a suite of tools within an industry that has a lot of staying power, right? Now, there are a lot of incumbents that are currently operating in that industry, and this is an individual who owns their own business and actually uses a couple of the incumbent software giants. Now, the strategy that they brought to us, which is, again, aligned with this wedge strategy here that we're going to go over, is to create a very small standalone product that will not pull or try to compete with the incumbents, but instead offer a new value add on what's already in the market. From there, that's their wedge into the market, and they'll slowly start to expand the features they provide until they overlap and consume the incumbents in the market. So I thought it was a very smart strategy. Looked around and I wanted to just exemplify this with a more robust, more well-documented story here. And so that's why we're going to be talking about Notion today. But of course, before we get into the details here, I'm sure you're probably wondering, if you're new here, who am I and why should you listen to me? My name is Timothy John Uzebu. I'm the co-founder here at Benmore Technologies. We specialize in helping non-technical, self-funded founders turn their ideas into real, functional software products. Over the years, we've worked with startups from all kinds of industries, including healthcare, real estate, marketing, logistics, you name it. The softwares that we built have gone on to raise funds from investors, bring in millions in revenue, and partner with companies like Microsoft, JP Morgan, and more, and serve tens of thousands of users around the globe, including companies like the New York Times, Toronto Raptors, and Google. So of course, it's safe to say that we know a thing or two about building software applications for non-technical founders. But before we get into the wedge strategy, we need to understand what exactly it is, right? And why Bootstrap founders like yourself should care about it. In startups, the wedge strategy means starting with a narrow, focused product that solves one problem very well, creating an entry point into the market, as we see here. Now, instead of trying to build a super app from day one, which would burn through your budget very quickly, especially if you're self-funding, you wedge into the market with a single use case that draws users in. Now, the question is, why is this ideal for Bootstrap founders? Because a focused product is cheaper and faster to build, easier to market, and you can start generating revenue very early on. Remember, a wedge is usually a pain point or a niche that big competitors aren't currently addressing well. Not to say that you can't later on expand into competing with those big competitors, but you need to find a way to gain simple traction at the beginning. That's exactly what a wedge allows us to do. Now, let's see how Notion did exactly that, turning a simple beginning into an all-in-one powerhouse. If you know Notion as it is right now, it's known as an all-in-one workspace for notes, documents, wikis, and project management, but it didn't start that way. In fact, Notion's founders initially aimed way bigger. Their early idea in 2013 was a no-code software toolmaker, a platform for anyone to build apps without knowing how to code. But here's the twist. Almost nobody wanted that at first. The concept was way too abstract, and at the end of the day, few people saw a need for a tool to design personalized programs. The founders, Ivan and Simon, realized that people didn't wake up wanting to build software. They woke up wanting to solve everyday problems that they faced throughout their workflows. So in 2015, 2 years after they started, unfortunately, Notion was on the brink of failure. The ambitious vision hadn't found product market fit, and their app was built on a shaky tech stack that kept crashing. So the question is, what did they do from there? They executed a bold wedge strategy pivot. They laid off their entire team, subletted their office, and moved to Japan to cut costs and focus. From there, they raised about $150,000 from the CEO's mother and rebuilt from the ground up. This time, they focused on a single Wedge use case, a minimalist productivity tool for note-taking and wikis. They kept their original idea of a flexible software editor hidden under the hood, but to their users, it looked like a simple, elegant note app. A minimal twist on Google Docs is kind of how they spun it, and it allowed them to go ahead and launch their Notion 1.0, the wedge that would eventually crack the market wide open. They launched 1.0 in August of 2016 on a product hunt and quickly became #1 product of the day, the week, and the month. In a matter of weeks, this tiny note-taking application was going viral, and their servers even crashed from the additional demand. Now, more importantly for the Bootstrap company, Notion's freemium model started bringing cash immediately. Right, they charge users $8 per month for extra features, and Notion 1.0 was actually profitable within the first few weeks of launch. This allowed them to move back from Japan to San Francisco, where they realized that Notion was actually spreading by word of mouth globally, and it was making money from a devoted base of early adopters. The key was to start with a focused, high-value product. Notion's pivot to a note-taking app saved the company. The wedge was something people immediately found useful without needing to be educated as to why they should care about it. Students organizing class notes, entrepreneurs writing wikis and docs and videos just like this, and teams creating simple knowledge bases. By solving a specific set of problems in an elegant way, Notion attracted a passionate initial user base. Now, when you're thinking about how you can go ahead and create your initial wedge as a founder, you should be asking yourself, what small problem can I solve so well that a core group of users will flock to it? Solve that first, and you've got your wedge. Once Notion had its foot in the door with a successful wedge, the real journey began. They didn't rush to build every possible feature at once. Now, this is one thing that I talk to individuals about quite often. The goal with building software isn't necessarily to build what you can build, right? Especially nowadays with AI and overseas talent and all this stuff, right? Almost everything under the sun can and has been built. So the question no longer is, what can we build? Is really, what should we build? You can look at Instagram as an example, right? When they launched in 2013, really there's nothing that they have right now on their platform that wasn't technically possible back then, right? But using prudence and from a capital, human resource, and time perspective, you want to follow this strategy to make sure you're not overexposing yourself to too much risk and technical debt too early on in your journey. This is exactly what Notion did as well. They expanded methodically over several years, laying in new capabilities that made sense for their growing user base. As Notion 1.0 was launched as a Mac application, so they went to create a Windows application and started focusing on collaboration features to help users work better in teams. By 2018, Notion Wedge had proved incredibly sharp. They launched Notion 2.0 in March of 2018, including major enhancements. This is when Notion really started positioning themselves as an all-in-one workspace. They added databases, boards, calendars, and templates, features that let users build simple applications inside Notion. Now, if you remember their original vision for the product, it was to always allow users to build simple apps, right? But of course, that was a bit too far reaching for their initial subset of users. They need something more tangible that they can more easily and quickly get immediate value from. Now, the result of these additional features was that Notion 2.0 once again hit #1 on product hunt for the day, week, and month category. As they continued their success, by 2019, Notion reached 1 million users worldwide, which was a huge milestone with almost no traditional marketing. Now, you'd think that their growth would have slowed down due to the pandemic in 2020, but that year, Notion's momentum actually continued. They quadrupled their user base in about 8 months, leading to a $2 billion valuation by April of 2020. They finally took a big venture round of funding with $50 million in 2020, then $275 million in 2021. Now, in October of 2021, Notion had over 20 million users and a $10 billion valuation. As we can all see now, by 2021, the wedge has reached unicorn status at 10 times over at this point. So by this point, their goal was to continue doubling down on what was working. The next step was to think bigger, turning a great product into a full-fledged platform. So here's how they did that. They released the Notion API. Now, transparently, our team here at Benmore uses the Notion API extensively. It's a great product. We love it. Now, the next big addition to their platform was the AI layer. In 2022, Notion began to roll out Notion AI, which was their own generative AI assistant built directly into the product. The features included auto-generating content, summarizing long notes, and asking and answering questions within documents. Now, one thing to note, of course, this wasn't a standalone separate product. It was an iteration and an enhancement to their existing workflow. Now, from 2023 and beyond, with over 20 million users worldwide, Notion was a full-fledged powerhouse. They continued to iterate on their Notion AI product in early 2023 and added dedicated projects feature set directly into Notion. This included Kanban boards, tasks, timeline views, and project dashboards. Now in January 2024, they rolled out the next iteration of their Wedge strategy, which was the Notion calendar. Of course, the main user base they had was interested in productivity and working better, working more efficiently. So the next thing to do was, of course, to lay out a calendar application, which was powered by an acquisition of a startup called Cron. Now, this was Notion's first actual standalone product, but it was built to work with the main workspace seamlessly. The next iteration was Notion Mail in 2024. In early 2024, Notion acquired Skiff, and by October, they had announced Notion Mail, Notion Forms, and enhanced workflow automation tools. Now we're finally starting to see the full vision of Ivan and Simon over a decade after they initially launched the product in 2013. All thanks to the Wedge strategy. Now that we know the strategy and we know exactly how a multi-billion-dollar startup used it, it's your turn to wedge and conquer. The Wedge strategy is what gave Notion the leverage to go from two founders in an apartment in Japan into a company used by millions worldwide with over $10 billion valuation, and finally actualizing the vision that they set out to accomplish in the beginning. And of course, they didn't achieve this with any flashy tactics. They did it by staying lean, focused, and user-obsessed every single step of the way. Let's go back to the beginning here and draw this back to you, right? What is your wedge? Is it a specific workflow in a niche or industry? Is it a single feature your competitors are overlooking? Or is it a problem that you understand because you've lived it yourself? That's where your opportunity lies. You want to start by building an MVP that solves that one thing exceptionally well, delivering undeniable value to your users, and iterating based on real world feedback. And at the end of the day, of course, trust the process and allow it to compound naturally over time. Now, if you found this video valuable, don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out the latest episode of our Benmore Brief podcast on the screen here. And if you're ready to start building your product, check out the links in the description to learn more about our process and book a call with our team here at Benmore Technologies.